So, if you remember, way back in I think it was last year, or it might have been this year. It was this year. AEW got rid of a bunch of people. They got rid of the Tate twins, aka the Boys, or Doc Castle, and the reason why they got rid of them was no showing events. Well, the Tates contended on their Twitter account that the reason why was because they had their flights based out of Nashville, but they're based out of Knoxville, so why couldn't, and AEW was refusing to change their flights from Nashville to Knoxville. Now, I've driven. Now, they also contend that they could not drive to Nashville because their car would not make it to Nashville. And that they just did not have time to really make it to Nashville for that flight. Now, I will contend, me being a truck driver, a professional driver, if you will, I have driven from Knoxville to Nashville many times. It's a 2-hour drive. 2 hours. Okay? As a professional wrestler, if you want the booking bad enough, you're going to go wherever they want you to fly out of. And AEW at the time was in cost-cutting mode, if you remember. They still are. But they were in cost-cutting mode, which is why they released a bunch of people. So I have no sympathy for the Tate twins on this one. Being a pro wrestler means that you may have to travel a little bit. Now, the courts may see this differently, as we'll get into, but I kind of got to side with AEW on this one. If you want the booking bad enough, you'll get your ass to wherever they want you to fly out of. And Nashville is not that far away from Knoxville. They also released Kevin Kelly at the time. Now, Kevin Kelly, at the time of his release, back in, I believe it was April or May, there was a movie going around. There was a movie going around called The Sound of Freedom. And it's about a guy who goes and rescues a bunch of children from overseas from a bunch of drug dealers. They're sold into child slavery. This actually happened. The guy who the movie is based on actually did this. But I'm going to use Mike Johnson of PW Insider's reporting here. I'm going to read this report and discuss it here. But basically, Kevin Kelly goes on Twitter and goes, "Oh yeah, Sound of Freedom is a really good movie. Everybody needs to go watch it." And it's a decent movie. It's not the best movie in the world. But then Ian Riccaboni gets on Twitter and goes, "Oh, well, basically saying, I didn't know we employed people who supported QAnon and all this mess." And I'm just like, oh my God. Can we not just watch a damn movie? If the movie had come on. Basically then after those statements were made, they went in a pissing match on Twitter, and they ended up firing Kevin Kelly. Now, let's read this report here, because now Kevin Kelly, along with the Tate twins, are suing AEW. Now, do I think this is going to have merit? Do I think this is going to have legs? Do I think this is going to get anywhere? I don't know. Do I think this is going to help to restore Kevin Kelly and the Tate twins' career and images? Probably. My guess is probably not. You can't put the lightning or the genie back in the bottle, really. But let's read this here. This is from PW Insider. Longtime professional wrestling announcer Kevin Kelly, Foot, Foote, his last name is Foot. I didn't know that about it. I thought it was Kevin Kelly. Oh well. And the Tate twins, aka Dalton Castle's boys, filed a lawsuit against AEW on August 30th before the Philadelphia County, Pennsylvania Court of Common Pleas. The lawsuit was first reported by Wrestling News AV. PW Insider has acquired a copy of the 41-page lawsuit, which alleges that the Tate twins were defamed after they were cut from Ring of Honor contracts due to company budget cuts, but that AEW and ROH owner Tony Khan claimed and stated that they were cut due to no showing events, which the Tate twins deny is accurate. They did end up no showing an event because they refused to get their asses to Nashville. Regardless of your excuse, if McDonald's tells me you got to show up for, we want, the owner of the franchise has another location across town and he wants you to get there for work to pick up a shift, your butt's getting in the car and you're driving across town whether you want to or not. And they're not going to take any excuses from you. They're going to fire you if you don't show. Anyway, they allege they were owed money, including royalties and travel reimbursements, and, quote, suffered damages in unspecified amounts for the unpaid compensation, and suffered indirect damages in an amount to be determined at trial, end quote. The lawsuit specifically notes, quote, this Khan's statement is demonstrably unproven and false. In fact, plaintiff Tates were prevented from attending one event because AEW incorrectly booked them to fly out of Nashville, Tennessee, instead of their home airport in Knoxville, Tennessee, and AEW failed to correct the travel arrangements when contacted. Defendant Khan did not correct the false statement after receiving this information. Plaintiff Tates were also not able to do a show in Canada as they were contacted too late to be able to travel to Canada in time for the show. Now, from what I understand, they were back and forth with text messages. They shared the text messages. And the text messages basically said, yes, we've changed your ticket before, but we're sick and tired of changing this ticket for you. It's more cost effective for you to fly out of Nashville. 9 times out of 10, when you fly out of Knoxville, they're going to connect you with a flight out of Nashville or Memphis anyway. Because Knoxville is not a big airport. So to save time and money, again, I'm defending AEW on this one. And I made a video about this a while back where I said the exact same thing. They were in cost-cutting mode. It's business. If you don't want to do business, it could be worse. They could, as private contractors, make you pay for your own flights. But they don't. I can't believe I'm actually defending AEW on this one. Anyway. In the lawsuit, the Tate state they have not had one wrestling booking since departing Ring of Honor, despite their attempts to work, and that quote the statement that the plaintiff Tates were quote unquote no shows, which implied that they are unreliable in their profession, subjects them to ridicule, embarrassment, humiliation, and is detrimental to each of their personal and professional relationships. You are unreliable. I'm sorry, I got to agree with AEW on this one. I really do. You are unreliable. They stated that Concord had absolutely no evidence to support that the plaintiff's Tates intentionally did not show up for events as opposed to having a legitimate reason for their non-appearance. You released the text messages. You hung yourselves, and those text messages that you put out on Twitter are inevitably going to come out as evidence in this if this ever goes to trial. In the case of Foot, Kevin Kelly, ROH announcer Ian Riccaboni is also named a defendant. The lawsuit alleges that Foot was hired after Tony Khan brought up the idea of him calling AEW Collision during conversations about New Japan Pro Wrestling, where Foot was working at the time. NJPW is a partner with AEW. Foot's contract contained a termination date of 6/30/26, according to the lawsuit, but when he was let go by the company, AEW allegedly breached the deal by not paying Foot money owed, royalties, and reimbursements of travel expenses. The exact amounts were redacted from the lawsuit. Foot is alleging defamation and false light on the part of AEW and Riccaboni. In the lawsuit, it states that Foot, quote, used social media to recommend that people view the movie Sound of Freedom on 7/12/20. This is 23. It says '03, but it's actually 23. This led to Riccaboni allegedly stating on a Discord social media platform on August 13th about Foot, quote, also had no idea he was going to promote QAnon movies, or else I might have made a different suggestion. I suppose that his name was always in the mix, but that QAnon stuff breaks my heart a little bit. Let's face it. You realized that when they bought Ring of Honor, you weren't cutting it, and that you're nowhere near as good as Kevin Kelly, so you sabotaged it. You used your far whatever. Oh man, I don't even want to get into it. You used politics as a way to screw a man out of a job. Now I'm on the side of Kevin Kelly on this. You know, who cares what he says to go out there and promote? What does that have to do with your wrestling career? What does that have to do with your ability to call a match? None. And I've never been a fan of Ian Riccaboni. I cannot stand him. I can't stand his way of commentary. Honestly, you fucked over Kevin Kelly, who's 10 times better than you, and you know it. Anyway, let's continue on here. Noting that the film has been, quote, associated with QAnon in social media and that QAnon has been described as a right wing conspiracy group that spreads misinformation and disinformation. The lawsuit notes that Foot, quote, attempt to contact defendant Riccaboni in an attempt to resolve the false statements published by defendant Riccaboni regarding plaintiff Foot's implied association with QAnon and received no response. Just because you recommend a movie does not mean, that's like saying everybody go see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and that means that I support cannibalism and murder. No, come on. Come on. The lawsuit states that the association between the movie and QAnon is, quote, unproven and false, and that, according to the lawsuit, quote, statement and the statement that Plaintiff Foot was promoting a QAnon movie is unproven and false. The implication that Plaintiff Foot is a member of supports, and or endorses QAnon is unproven and false. Defendant Riccaboni did not remove the post or otherwise clarify to disassociate Plaintiff Foot from QAnon, stating that Foot does not have, never has have, and never will have any association with QAnon. The lawsuit alleges that, quote, the implied association with QAnon subjected Plaintiff Foot to ridicule, embarrassment, humiliation, and is detrimental to his personal and professional relationships. That is true. That is true. The lawsuit states that Riccaboni published the statements on Discord, published it with, quote, knowledge of in reckless disregard for their falsity, and, quote, had absolutely no evidence to support a relationship between Plaintiff Foot and QAnon, and no evidence to support a relationship between the movie and QAnon. That's true. There is no relation to this movie and QAnon. I've watched the movie. Nowhere does it say the words QAnon anywhere in that movie. It's based on a true story. It's also statements that the statements are highly offensive to a reasonable person, as it has been reported that QAnon has been defined as a domestic terrorist and or is otherwise regarding as a cult conspiracy theorist and antagonistic to the enforcement of laws. Now, this is from Mike Johnson here. It says, note from Mike. Should be noted that the connection between the film and QAnon was covered quite a bit in the mainstream media when the film was released for a small theatrical run and was a big talking point around the film. The film actually grossed a lot of money. Time at the time reported, billed as a story about a real-life Tim Ballard, a former special agent for the Department of Homeland Security and founder of the anti-trafficking group Operation Underground Railroad (OUR). Sound of Freedom has become mired in controversy over criticisms that it features misleading depictions of child exploitation and plays into right-wing conspiracy theorists associated with the QAnon movement. These associations have been perpetualized by both Ballard and his on-screen counterpart Jim Caviezel, who has been a prominent supporter of QAnon for years. Just because the actors support the movement doesn't mean this guy did. I mean, come on. And even if Jim Caviezel and Ballard did support it, it's still based on a true story. NPR also provided coverage of the potential connection. The film was being worked on back in 2015, well before QAnon began to be established in the public eye. The actual film was shot in 2018, but took several years to be released and was finally released in part due to crowdfunding for the marketing and distribution after the Disney company, which had acquired it, had not moved to release it. That led the filmmakers. It led to Sound of Freedom being acquired back by the filmmakers. The lawsuit notes that Foot, quote unquote, made a complaint to AEW about Riccaboni's post, pointing out AEW's social media policy, which is redacted in the lawsuit. But that after the complaint, quote, AEW began taking adverse actions towards Foot's announcing duties, including Tony Schiavone began doing play-by-play on Collision in November of 2023, taking over Foot's role. AEW told Foot that Riccaboni had been disciplined, but it would not tell Foot what the discipline was, and that Foot was never told the outcome of the complaint. The lawsuit notes that to date, Foot still does not know. They're not going to tell you how they disciplined him. That's between Riccaboni and AEW if he was disciplined. The lawsuit alleges that the stress from the defendant, Riccaboni's unwarranted comment, and AEW's lack of response adversely affected plaintiff Foot's mental health and his marital status. Ooh. Foot alleges he informed AEW of the stress and mental health consequences he was experiencing due to the comment and lack of response. After he was not booked for Sting's retirement match in March, Foot called and left a message for AEW's Human Resources Department regarding his treatment, and he was terminated in April. The lawsuit noted, quote, AEW's ratification or adoption is further demonstrated by the adverse decisions made with respect to plaintiff Foot's performance or services for AEW and the eventual termination of the agreement. It can be reasonably inferred from AEW's actions and inactions that it credited the defamatory statements and reinforced the adverse effects of the statements by decreasing plaintiff Foot's public appearances and terminating the agreement. As a direct and proximate result of the torturous actions and inactions of the defendants, plaintiff Foot suffered damages in the form of loss of business opportunities, damage to his reputation, humiliation, embarrassment, severe emotional distress, lost wages, loss of potential revenue, loss of goodwill, punitive damages, and other damages to be proven at trial. So basically, this also notes that he had a potential business opportunity to work the May 6th New Japan Pro Wrestling All Together event, providing English commentary, but believes that based upon information and belief, defendant AEW prevented plaintiff Foot from being hired to do the English commentary. There is no way AEW is going to let New Japan hire this guy back. So that right there is standing in the way of him gaining employment. He's got some basis there. So basically, they're all the plaintiffs and defendants with this lawsuit. They're wanting money. They're wanting their reputations to be just, to be intact. This is one that says plaintiffs be awarded injunctive relief to enjoin defendant All Elite Wrestling and all other persons enacting in concert to participation. Basically, they're trying to get them to say that they're not private. They're not private contractors. They're employees. Well, how many times has that tried to get brung up in court and it's gotten shot down because you guys sign on the dotted line when you get hired. So the private contractor thing's going to hold up. I don't think the Tate twins, as a result of this, have any legs to stand on because of the very text messages. And if I'm AEW's lawyers, I'm on Twitter right now screen capping those text messages like crazy. In the case of Kevin Kelly may have a defamation lawsuit on his hands if he can prove that the Discord comment from Riccaboni led to him being fired. Now, you can build up a case that Riccaboni was already there, they had already purchased Ring of Honor, and that he felt threatened in his job by Kevin Kelly coming aboard, and that this was just a scheme and a ruse to get Kevin Kelly fired. They have a very, very strong leg to stand on that. There's no doubt about it. Kevin Kelly is better than Ian. And that Ian probably felt threatened and was waiting for an opportunity. And when Kevin Kelly just posted up, hey, everybody go check out this movie, it's really good, Ian Riccaboni saw his opening and he launched. And he tried to use political controversy to get a man fired and to tarnish his reputation when it's a fact that, you know, Kevin Kelly is not associated with QAnon. He just liked the movie. So I don't think the Tate twins will win their lawsuit. However, Kevin Kelly, I think, has a strong leg to stand on. Let me know what you guys think about this lawsuit in the comments below, and we will see you down the road.